Chapter 2346. It's just a door. How much would it cost if I made you a new one? One of them said nonchalantly. Hearing this, Fengjiu smirked. It's not much. You 3 families will pay me 1,000,000 gold coins each. Hearing this, those people gasped. You're robbing us. 1,000,000 gold coins each? Even if your door is inlaid with gold, it doesn't have to be that expensive. You're all wrong. My 1,000,000 gold coins really aren't enough to overcharge you. Fengjiu walked slowly and glanced at them. This door isn't worth much, but I, Fengjiu, am worth a lot of money. You've already offended me by kicking and slamming my door. Do you know what kind of price you have to pay to offend a strong person? As soon as she finished speaking, a powerful aura of suppression instantly swept out from her body and enveloped the 30 over people. The 30 over people fell to their knees with a thud. Their faces were drained of all blood and were filled with fear. Offending a strong person? I can take your lives. Her cold voice was sharp. She stopped in her tracks and glanced at them. So, this 1,000,000 gold coins isn't just for this door. It's for your lives. If you think it's too much and can't bear to pay, then that's fine. I just need to give the order and I can let you bleed on the spot. If you die, then I'll forget about this 1,000,000 gold coins. Her voice drifted out softly, but it was like a cold December wind that blew into their hearts. They couldn't help but shiver. At this moment, they were filled with regret. If they had known this would happen, they wouldn't have come here to kick and cause a ruckus. Now that Fengjiu had appeared, they had gone for wool and come home shorn. 1,000,000 gold coins was a huge sum of money to them. Du Fan, collect the money from them. If they don't hand it over to you before sunset, then there's no need for these people to live. Fengjiu looked at Du Fan and instructed. Yes, Du Fan replied. Ling Shuang, come with me, she said and walked forward. Ling Shuang followed her quietly. Arriving at the Heavenly Dan building, when Ling Hua and the others saw Fengjiu, they all came out to greet him in surprise. Master. In the attic, the fire phoenix transformed into a little bird and flew onto Fengjiu's shoulder. Master, you're back. I'm back, she said softly and looked at everyone with a smile. I've made all of you worry this year. Master, it's fine as long as you're back. Seeing you come back safely, we're relieved. Yes, mistress, it's good that you're back. Everyone surrounded her with smiles on their faces. At this moment, a white figure walked out from a corner on the first floor. When she saw Fengjiu surrounded by people, she couldn't help but lower her head. After hesitating for a moment, she walked over. Bai Qingqing greets master. She bowed respectfully to Fengjiu. When he saw her, Fengjiu's eyes moved slightly. He glanced at her and said, Raise your head. Yes, she replied and raised her head to look at him. Fengjiu only took one look and knew that Bai Qingqing had restrained her sharpness. She no longer had the arrogance she had when he first met her in the Sky Sun sect. She was much more pleasing to the eye. Chapter 2347. Yes, Bai Qingqing replied, then left. Emo Chun is in the backyard? She asked, looking at Ling Hua. Emo Chun is in the backyard. As Ling Hua spoke, he saw his master walking towards the backyard. He glanced at his sister, then followed his master to the backyard. Emo Chen had already heard the commotion in front of him, so he knew that she had returned. Thus, he took out some wine, poured 2 cups, and waited until he saw the red figure slowly walking towards him. When he saw the aura on her body, his eyes flickered and he asked curiously, What's your current level of strength? Hearing this, Fengjiu smiled slightly. The peak of the immortal Emperor realm. Ling Hua and Ling Shuang, who were behind him, were surprised when they heard this. Their master was already at the peak of the immortal Emperor realm? It had only been a year, but she had already broken through to the peak of the immortal Emperor realm. It was indeed unbelievable. No wonder Emo Chen said that this was a disaster for her, but also a blessing for her. The higher one's cultivation level, the harder it was to advance. There were almost no immortal emperors in the upper reaches. However, she had only been missing for a year, and her strength had already broken through to the peak of the immortal emperor realm. How could this not be surprising? In that case, I have to congratulate you. Imochen chuckled, then gestured to her, sit. Fengjiu sat down at the table, then said to Ling Hua behind him, get someone to prepare 2 side dishes. Yes, Ling Hua replied, then left. I think they've told you about your brother, right? Imochen drank his wine, then looked at her and asked. Yes, I found out as soon as I came back. She replied, then took a sip of her wine. Then what do you think? What do you plan to do? He gently swirled the wine in his hand, looking at the slightly swaying wine as he asked softly. What else can I do? Right now, the most important thing is to find him. Moreover, I don't think my brother would do such a thing. Besides, he has no reason to do so. Imochen nodded slightly and said, that's right. That's why I'm thinking that this person might be an imposter. He's using his name to make enemies everywhere. His goal is to make all the forces rise up against you. There's also another possibility. If this person isn't an imposter and is really Guan Shilin, then it's very likely that he's being controlled by someone. Hearing this, Fengjiu's eyes flashed. That's about the same as what I thought. I think that might be the case too. She paused for a moment before continuing. If that person is an imposter, then my brother should be in danger and unable to escape. Otherwise, it is impossible for him not to come back after hearing what is happening outside. Right now, I am more worried about his safety. Unfortunately, we still haven't found out who did it. We can't do anything about it. Imochen sighed softly and said, we've mobilized all the people we can. Even the people from the black market are helping to investigate, but there's still no news. You don't have any suspects or forces? Fengjiu glanced at him. After investigating for so long, you don't have any leads? Hearing this, Imochen chuckled. I knew you would ask this. Chapter 23:48. Fengjiu's hand paused. He seemed to have thought of something and continued drinking. Not long after, waiter Yang and Bai Qingqing came in with the dishes. Big Sister Feng, I heard from them that you're back as soon as I arrived. Where have you been this year? Waiter Yang asked with a smile after serving the dishes. Fengjiu looked at her and was slightly surprised. He didn't answer but asked, Waiter, why have you lost so much weight? The originally plump little girl had now become very slender. Her originally pretty face had become even more distinct after losing weight. Her pair of bright big eyes seemed to be able to speak. They were watery and overflowing with spiritual energy, making people's eyes light up at a glance. Hearing Fengjiu's words, waiter Yang smiled embarrassedly. I didn't eat that much. Also, I practiced a set of martial arts every morning and night. That's why I slowly lost weight. Yes, it doesn't matter if you're fat or thin, as long as you're healthy, Fengjiu said with a smile. I went to a place to cultivate this year. Didn't I just come back? I didn't expect so many things to happen in the year that I wasn't around. Big Sister Feng, don't worry too much. Big Brother Guan will definitely be found, waiter Yang comforted. Yes. She nodded with a smile. Then we'll go out first. After saying that, she left with Bai Qingqing. Imochen and Fengjiu chatted in the courtyard. Outside, because of Fengjiu's return, the news gradually spread 2 days later. What? He's back? When the Temple of Darkness Lord, Yi Xiuran, heard the news that Fengjiu had returned to the Heavenly Pill House, he stood up from behind his desk with a whoosh. His expression was filled with surprise. He's really back? Is the news true? At this moment, there was a trace of nervousness in his heart, a trace of nervousness and excitement that even he himself did not know why. The elder saw that his master's expression was pleasantly surprised and was slightly startled. He then nodded his head. Yes, master. Outside, there are rumors that Ghost Dr. Fengjiu has returned. I heard that at the time, 3 small families went to the Feng Manor to cause trouble. When the Feng Manor's gates opened, Ghost Dr. Fengjiu came out wearing red clothes. As soon as she appeared, she easily dealt with those small families who were causing trouble. Furthermore, those small families had to pay a compensation of 1 million gold coins each. Because of this, the news of her return spread quickly. This old servant immediately rushed over to report to Master as soon as I received the news. Good, very good. You did well. A joyful smile appeared on his face. Since she's back, then this highness will go and meet her. As he spoke, he picked up the tea on the table and drank. Hearing this, the elder hesitated for a moment. Seeing his master's face filled with anticipation and excitement, he quietly asked, Master, have you fallen in love with that ghost Dr. Fengjiu? He had lived for a long time and was able to see through people and things. His master's attitude towards that ghost Dr. Fengjiu seemed to have changed ever since the main hall was destroyed. Speaking of which, it was strange. Their Temple of Darkness main hall had been destroyed by Fengjiu. At that time, his master had even been injured. Could it be that he did not hate her to the core? Why was he captivated by her instead? Pfft. Chapter 2349. Hearing his master's words, the elder was startled. Oh? That means, Master doesn't like that ghost Dr. Fengjiu? That's impossible, he said resolutely and decisively. The elder clearly sighed in relief. That's good, that's good. This old servant thought that Master knew it was the ghost doctor who saved you back then, so you turned your gratitude into adoration. When Ishuran heard this, he felt a few black lines cross his forehead. What kind of messy logic was this? Master, actually, it's right that you didn't like her. If you really did like the ghost doctor, then it's destined to be a one-sided love. The ghost doctor won't like you. The elder started nagging again, ignoring Ishuran's ashen face as he said meaningfully, We also know quite a bit about ghost Dr. Fengjiu. She has many outstanding men by her side, especially that fiancé of hers called Xianyuan Mose. He's definitely a ruthless character. He paused, then continued. Moreover, it's said that although the two of them are often separated, their relationship is very deep. Even if Master wants to forcefully stick a foot in, you won't be able to. Therefore, before Master's heart is moved, this old servant wants to advise Master to avoid walking down a path of no return. Ishuran's face completely darkened. He coldly swept a glance at the chattering elder. What do you mean by walking down a path of no return? Didn't I just say it? I don't like that woman. Moreover, am I your master that bad? What do you mean she won't like me? What kind of thing is Xianyuan Mose? No matter how outstanding he is, can he be more outstanding than me? The elder's lips moved, wanting to say something, but he was afraid of hurting Ishuran. In the end, he only sighed. In my heart, Master is the most formidable and outstanding. No one can compare to Master. However, he had to admit that at Fengjiu's side, whether it was that Xianyuan Mose, that Tianji elder's disciple Emochin, her foster brother Guanxilin, or the 4 handsome youths from the 4 great immortal sects, each and every one of them was extraordinary. Speaking of which, it was strange. What exactly was going on? Those people gathered around her one by one, protecting her and protecting her. Thinking of this, he thought of a piece of news that had recently spread. He hesitated for a moment, looked at his master and said, Master, it's said that this ghost Dr. Fengjiu is the star of the Phoenix? What does Master think of this matter? Hearing this, Ishuran frowned and fell silent for a moment. Feng Xing is a person of great fortune. The people by her side will more or less receive some benefit. Moreover, it's best not to make an enemy of such a person. Hearing this, the old man secretly glanced at his master and thought to himself, Why do I feel that Master's last sentence is what he wants to say? Don't make enemies? So that's what friends are. Master, The ghost doctor still doesn't know that you're the Lord of the Temple of Darkness, right? The old man suddenly asked. Ishoran's expression shifted before he smiled. I don't know. So what? He patted his robes and said, All right, I'll leave the rest to you. I should also go to the Heavenly Pill building to take a look. He had waited for her for a year. She was finally back. Master, master! The old man shouted, only to see him stride out, disappearing from sight in a short while. Chapter 2350. Another 2 days passed. Early in the morning, after hearing that Fengzhou had returned, Hun Yuanzi hurried to the Heavenly Pill building. As soon as he entered, he pulled Ling Hua aside and asked, I heard that Fengzhou is back? Where is she? I have something urgent to discuss with her. Senior, my master is refining pills in the alchemy room. If there's anything urgent, we'll have to wait for her to come out. Why don't you sit here and rest for a while? Have a cup of tea first. I'll take you to her as soon as she comes out. Ling Hua smiled warmly and led him to a table for guests to rest. Hearing this, Hun Yuanzi frowned. After sitting down, he said, Didn't I hear that she's only been back for a few days? Why is she working so hard to refine pills? I know that the Heavenly Pill building has a lot of things going on recently. How can she stay in the alchemy room? She's been dealing with a lot of things since she came back. She started refining pills yesterday evening and didn't come out of the alchemy room all night. I think she'll come out today. Ling Hua said and asked someone to serve tea to Hun Yuanzi. Senior Hun Yuanzi, please have some tea. Bai Qingqing served tea and placed it on the table in front of Hun Yuanzi. Just as she was about to leave, she heard his surprised voice. You're that Bai from the Heavenly Sun sect. What's your name again? Hun Yuanzi knocked his head and thought for a while, but he couldn't remember the name. Senior, I'm Bai Qingqing. She lowered her eyes and said respectfully. Oh, you're called Bai Qingqing? Come, raise your head and let this old man take a look. Hun Yuanzi said with a smile. Hearing this, Bai Qingqing hesitated for a moment. At this moment, she heard Ling Hua's voice. Didn't you hear what Senior Hun Yuanzi said? Raise your head and let him take a look. Ling Hua's voice was indifferent. It was very different from his usual gentle voice. He knew that Bai Qingqing had once made things difficult for his master and even wanted to scheme against him. How could he be nice to her? Yes. Bai Qingqing's face was slightly pale. Only then did she raise her head. However, at this moment, he only felt humiliated and embarrassed. She was originally a proud daughter of the heavens, insufferably arrogant. But now she had fallen to such a state. She had to raise her head when she was told to do so. Only she, who had personally experienced this kind of humiliation, could understand how embarrassing it was. She does look pretty good and is worthy of the name Qingqing. However, she is still a far cry from Little Feng. Hun Yuan sipped his tea as he commented on Bai Qingqing. She calmed herself down and said in a calm tone, Qingqing is only a servant by Master's side. Naturally, she cannot be compared to Master. Let this old man tell you. Don't put down your pride as the Bai family's young lady and the Sky Sun sect's prodigy. It's your fortune to be able to stay by Phone Girl's side. She'll never mistreat anyone who catches her eye. Work hard. Hearing this, Bai Qingqing couldn't help but glance at Hun Yuan. Her heart warmed and she smiled. Yes, thank you for your advice, Senior. I will definitely not disappoint Master. Hearing this, Ling Hua couldn't help but glance at her. Seeing that she didn't seem to be faking it, his eyes flashed and he said, You may leave. Yes. She bowed and left. Chapter 2351. Seeing this, Ling Hua sat down and waited with him. At the same time, he told him some things about his master. At this time, there were no guests in the Heavenly Pill building. Only the people in the building were walking around. In addition, they were sitting in a corner, so no one else could hear their conversation. This wait lasted all the way until evening. Fengzhou walked out of the alchemy room and pulled up her sleeves, smelling the strong smell of medicine. She saw Ling Shuang walk up and say, "Master, Senior Hunyuan is here. He's been waiting for you since morning. He said he has something to talk to you about." Fengjiu, who was patting her sleeves, paused when she heard this. "That old man is here? Go invite him in. Also, call Ling Hua over," she ordered as she patted her sleeves, dispersing some of the smell of medicine. She pulled up her sleeves and sniffed. There was still a smell of medicine. When he heard Ling Shuang announce that Fengjiu had finished refining the pills, Hunyuan immediately stood up and said to Ling Hua, Look, I've been waiting for an entire day. I have an urgent matter." As he spoke, he quickly walked to the backyard. Seeing this, Ling Hua smiled. Just as he was about to leave, he was stopped by his sister. "Master wants you to come over." Ling Shuang looked at him and said. Ling Hua nodded. "Okay, then let's go together." Then he walked to the backyard with his sister. In the backyard, as soon as Hun Yuanzi saw Feng Jiu sitting at the table, he walked over and sat down casually. "Ling Hua has told me about what happened to you in the past year. It hasn't been easy. To be able to come out of that kind of place, you really are Fengjiu." Hearing this, Fengjiu smiled. "You've told me? Then I don't need to tell you again." She picked up her tea and took a sip to moisten her throat. She asked, "Why are you looking for me?" Oh right, look at my memory. I really have an urgent matter to discuss with you." As Hunyuan spoke, he looked at Fengjiu's calm face and changed the topic. "Let me ask you first. How do you plan to deal with your elder brother, Guan Shilin? This matter has caused quite a stir. Everyone knows about it." She smiled and said, "I've already sent people to look for him. You don't have to worry too much about him." "Is that so? Can you leave now?" the old man asked. Hearing this, Fengjiu, who was sipping tea, she looked at him. "Something happened to Zhuo Junyue. I just found out about it. Then, I heard that you're back, so I came to look for you." The old man sighed. "Didn't you say that you're lacking some herbs?" He's been out searching for them for the past year. He heard that there was a hidden clan that he needed some herbs, so he asked around and went to that hidden clan. He paused for a moment before continuing. "Fortunately, I was careful at that time and left him 1,000 miles sound transmission talisman. But in the end, he must have been in an emergency, so he only had time to tell me roughly where he was. He said that the place was a little strange, so I thought of you. You want me to go with you?" Fengjiu raised her eyebrows and asked. Chapter 23:52. That area was indeed very strange. He wanted to bring Fengjiu along. If anything happened, at least there would be someone to discuss it with. Fengjiu pondered for a moment. She took out the teleportation scroll and asked, "Where is it?" The moment she took it out, she heard the old man's voice. "You don't have to look. It's not on it." Hunyuanzi said, "That place is isolated from the rest of the world. Even if you want to find it, it'll take some effort. The teleportation scroll doesn't have that place either." Hearing this, she paused for a moment and asked, "Then how long will it take to get there from here?" The main reason was that she had only returned for a few days, and there was still no news of her brother. She was more worried that she would be gone for too long or that they would not be able to contact her for some reason. Hunyuanzi thought for a moment and said, "If we speed up the journey, it should take about a month." "About a month," she thought for a moment and then nodded. "All right. I'll go with you, but you'll have to wait for a while. I can only leave after I've delegated some matters." She did not think that she would have to leave again so soon. However, she could not leave Zhuo Junyue's matter alone. "All right, go do your things. This old man won't mind waiting for you for a while." Hunyuanzi waved his hand and gestured for her to go about her business. Fengjiu then got up and instructed someone to take care of Hunyuanzi. She then went to the loft and called everyone over to give them detailed instructions. She also had someone leave a message for Mo Qin. When the sky darkened, Fengjiu took a bath and went to Hunyuanzi's place. "Old man, let's go." Feng Nine, who was dressed in green, walked out. She was still dressed as a man. The green and white robe on her body was less unrestrained and flamboyant than the red robe. Instead, she looked more handsome and elegant, like an elegant young master, which was very pleasing to the eye. Hun Yuanzi looked at her in surprise. "Are you planning to travel through the night with this old man? Let's go. The sooner I finish, the sooner I can come back," Feng Jiu said as he walked out. Seeing this, he followed. Just as the two of them were about to leave, the fire phoenix flapped her wings and flew over. "Master, aren't you bringing me along? You stay here and guard this place. If I'm not here, you can help look after it." Feng Jiu tapped Fire Phoenix's head and smiled. "All right. Be careful, I'll wait for you here." The Fire Phoenix could only say so. However, compared to a year ago, it was more at ease now that its master was at the peak of the immortal Emperor realm. Thus, Feng Jiu and Hun Yuan directly left through the back door. It could be said that other than the people in charge of the Heavenly Pill Pavilion, no one outside knew that she had just returned and left with Hun Yuan. However, things were just so coincidental. About 2 hours after the two of them left, Ishuran also arrived at the Heavenly Pill Building. He knocked on the door of the Heavenly Pill Building. The person who opened the door was Du Fan. "Sir, what's the matter?" Du Fan looked at the man in front of him and sized him up. "I'm looking for your master," Ishuran said as he looked inside. As Ishuran spoke, he looked inside and saw that there were only a few people who were sorting out the medicinal herbs walking around, but he didn't see any familiar figures. "Sir, you are." Chapter 23:53. When Du Fan saw the man walk in, he closed the door and followed in. "My master went out. Sir, you can come find her later." Ishuran paused when he heard this and turned to glance at Du Fan. "Went out? Didn't she just come back? Why did she go out again?" "She had some matters to attend to, so she went out," Du Fan said as his gaze landed on Ishuran. He had heard of Ishuran from Duan Yi, so he should be on good terms with master. "Where did she go? When will she be back?" he asked after finding a place to sit down. "She'll be back in about a month. As for where, I have no comment." "Pour me a cup of tea," Ishuran said to Du Fan. Du Fan had someone serve tea. Seeing Ishuran sitting there, frowning and shaking his head from time to time, Du Fan found it strange and asked, "Young Master E, are you looking for my master for something?" "I just happened to be passing by and came in to see her." "What could be the matter?" Ishuran said lazily. He held the teacup in one hand and gently scraped the tea lid with the other. It was unknown what he was thinking. "Oh right, where's that Duan Yi? I heard that her big brother caused quite a bit of trouble recently, and this mess hasn't been cleaned up yet. Can she be at ease to go out?" Ishuran asked as he sipped his tea. "Young Master E, thank you for your concern. My master left after handing over the matter." Du Fan smiled politely. "Since she's not here, I'll stay and wait for her. A month should pass very quickly." Du Fan was startled. "Young Master E wants to stay here? Can't? Didn't you say she'd be gone for a month at most? Don't tell me you want me to go back?" Ishuran glanced at him and sat still. Du Fan smiled. "That's not it. It's just that our Heavenly Pill Dispensary has been facing quite a bit of trouble recently. I'm worried that we won't be able to greet young Master E if you stay here." "It's fine. I don't need you to greet me." Du Fan's expression shifted. He glanced at Ishuran, who had no intention of leaving, and said, "Young Master E, please sit for a moment. I'll be right back." With that, he bowed and left. Arriving at the back, the 8 Phoenix Guard captains asked, "Who is that person?" Ishuran. Du Fan glanced at them. "Do you still remember the person Duan Yi mentioned?" "That's him." Hearing this, they looked at each other. "That Ishuran that Duan Yi spoke of whose strength isn't below his?" Du Fan nodded. "That's right. He said he came to look for Master. But you know that Master just left. He said he wants to stay here and wait for Master to come back. I want to discuss this with you and Ling Hua. Is there anything wrong with this person? We haven't investigated his background. Wouldn't it be inappropriate to let him stay? One of them asked. That's what I'm worried about, Du Fan said. Ling Hua walked over with something in his hand. When he heard their conversation, he asked, What are you worried about? Chapter 23:54. Stay at the Feng residence? Du Fan looked at Ling Hua in surprise. Ling Hua nodded. That's right. It's fine to have him stay at the Feng residence. There are many guest rooms there, and there are many people secretly keeping watch. Also, there aren't many important things there, so it should be fine to have him stay there. They looked at each other and finally said, That's fine. Then we'll do as you say. Then I'll bring him to the Feng residence. As Du Fan spoke, he walked to the tea table in front of Ishuran and smiled. Young Master Yi, it's already late. Let me take you to rest. Ishuran glanced at him and nodded slightly before leaving with him. He only stopped when they arrived at the Feng residence. This is where Fengjie lives? As soon as Master returns, she'll return here to stay, Du Fan said and knocked on the door. When an elder opened the door, he said to Ishuran, Young Master Yi, please. Then which family does the Ling residence we saw on the way here belong to? He asked Du Fan. Du Fan smiled brightly. Young Master Yi, you can wait for my master to return and personally ask her the questions you want to know. As he spoke, he paused and continued. The Feng Manor also has its own rules. There are some places that guests cannot go. In a bit, I will mention them to young Master Yi. In a few days, Duan Yi and the others will return. When that time comes, this place will be lively. When Ishuran saw this, he tactfully didn't ask any further and followed him inside. On the other side, Fengjie and Hunyuan Zi, who had been hurrying through the night, flew on their flying tools. They silently swept across the night sky and headed into the distance. Several days later, Old Man, is this really the right direction? Fengjie frowned as he looked at the endless forest in the mountains. No matter how he looked, this place didn't look like a place where people live. Don't worry. It can't be wrong, I've been here a long time ago. Otherwise, how would I know that this place is strange? Hunyuan took a sip of wine and glanced down. It's still early. It'll take at least 2 or 3 days to arrive. As soon as he finished speaking, his stomach rumbled. Hearing this, Hunyuan smiled awkwardly. I haven't eaten much meat in the past 2 days. Hearing this, Fengjie looked down and said, There should be some game down there. Let's go down and rest for a while. Let's hunt some game for dinner. Sure. His eyes lit up and he smiled. I haven't tasted your cooking in a long time. You go get some firewood, I'll hunt some game. When they reached the bottom, Fengjie said to the old man. The two of them divided the work, and the location was under a big tree. All right. The old man responded. He picked up some trees in the surrounding area and said to Fengjie, Don't wander too far from here. Just hunt some rabbits or whatever to eat. Don't be too picky. Fengjie raised his brows and glanced at the old man before heading into the forest. Was he worried that she would encounter danger in a place like this? The old man was really getting worse and worse. Walking into the forest, she felt that this dense forest was very humid. The air was very humid and there was little sunlight. The surroundings were very quiet, and there weren't even the sounds of animals. She couldn't help but feel a little surprised. Looking from above, this dense forest was very lush. There was naturally no lack of game in such a place. However, after coming down, she discovered that there seemed to be something different. Chapter 23:55. Her gaze fell on the little baby who was wriggling about in the weeds in front of her in astonishment. How could there be a baby in this place? She felt strange and walked forward. Sure enough, it was a baby. However, this baby did not open his eyes, but his hands and feet were wriggling, and his mouth was making ah sounds. Looking at the naked baby wriggling about, She released her divine sense and scanned the surroundings, but found that there was no one else around except for her. However, just as she was about to withdraw her divine sense, a light breeze blew over, and she smelled a faint scent of blood. The scent of blood? She raised her eyebrows and looked at a certain place in the forest, then looked at the baby at her feet. Only then did she bend down and pick up the baby in the weed. When she picked up the baby, her hands were wet. Looking down, she saw that there was a bleeding wound on the baby's back. "He's injured." She was slightly surprised. Just now, she only smelled the scent of blood in the distance, but she did not smell the blood on the baby. Suppressing the strange feeling in her heart, she freed one hand and was about to take out a robe from her space to wrap the baby, but just as she freed her hand, the baby in her arms suddenly opened his eyes. When those eyes opened, they were not the eyes of a baby at all, but the eyes of a beast. Hiss! Suddenly, the baby in her arms changed, and jumped out of her arms like a demonic beast. Its mouth opened wide, revealing sharp fangs. Its claw-like hands grabbed her shoulder with one hand and her clothes with the other. Its bloodthirsty mouth suddenly moved forward and bit down on her neck. The sudden change made Fengjiu unable to avoid it. She could only stretch out her free hand and fiercely slap the demonic beast's head. A fierce aura flashed through her palm, and with a bang, the demonic beast's head flew out in an instant, but its body was still tightly attached to her body, and was still moving. She swung her hand, trying to fling the demonic beast's body away. However, when the spiritual power in her body surged, a powerful aura bounced it away, and at the same time, the demonic beast's grip on her shoulder was torn open, revealing her bones. Frowning slightly, she let out a muffled groan. Her eyes were cold as she looked at the head and body of the demonic beast that was still moving. With a flip of her hand, 2 flames flew out, instantly burning the demonic beast's head and body clean. Feng Lass! The old man, who had picked up the branches but did not see Fengjiu return, was a little worried, so he kept looking in the direction Fengjiu went. After walking a distance, he suddenly heard movement in front of him. Fengjiu's hand hung weakly. Her green robe was stained with blood, and she was trembling with fear. Her arm was trembling unconsciously because of the deep wound. She glanced down and heard the cries of a baby in front of her, which seemed to have been woken up. Her eyes flashed and she walked forward. Feng Lass! Hun Yuanzi's figure flew over, and in a few breaths, he had arrived at Fengjiu's side. When he saw her frightening wound, he could not help but gasp. Chapter 2356. He hadn't seen her for a while, but she was covered in blood. There were also several wounds from her shoulder to her arm that were so deep that her bones could be seen. What was going on? I met a monster beast just now. Fengjiu continued to walk forward, following the direction of the baby's cry. I was caught off guard and got hurt. Then you should treat the wound on your hand first. Where are you going? The old man said. He couldn't help but worry when he saw that most of her green clothes were dyed red. There's a child crying up ahead. She stopped and looked at the worried Hun Yuanzi with a smile. Don't worry about me. This injury is nothing. You call this a little injury? He glared at her and asked, Where's the child? How can there be a child in this deep forest? Before he could finish his sentence, he heard the sound of a child crying. He couldn't help but be stunned. There really is a child? Let's go ahead and take a look. As she spoke, she walked forward with the old man. After about 100 meters, they first saw some corpses and broken limbs on the ground. Those corpses seemed to have been hollowed out, leaving only skin and bones. That cruel scene made the two of them involuntarily raise their hearts. Especially Fengjiu. When the monster beast pounced on her, its original appearance seemed to be right in front of her. If she hadn't acted fast enough, she would probably have ended up like the corpses in front of her. This is too cruel. The old man muttered as he opened his eyes. The old man's eyes widened as he murmured. He looked at the corpses and saw that they were all the same. Their internal organs had been dug out, and their blood seemed to have been sucked dry. Even he had never seen such a scene before. In just an instant, Hunyuan and the old man looked at each other in unison and looked forward. The two of them also released their divine senses and probed ahead, but they found that it seemed to be blocked by something. Strange, my divine senses can't detect what's ahead? Hunyuan was surprised. When he heard the baby's cry, he said to Fengjiu, "The baby's cry is coming from up ahead. However, there might be a problem up ahead." Fengjiu covered her injured hand with her uninjured hand. She activated the green lotus chi in her body and released a little green light through her palm, which quickly healed the deep wound from her shoulder to her arm. The wound was so deep that the bone could be seen. Hunyuan's attention was focused on the front, so he didn't notice that Fengjiu's hand was glowing. Therefore, no one knew that the deep wound was healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. "I was injured by a monster beast with the ability to transform into a baby." Fengjiu's voice came out of her mouth. She still covered her arm with one hand and looked at Hunyuan. "The human-shaped baby that the demonic beast transformed into doesn't have any demonic aura. Even I can't see through it. Be careful. Are you saying that your injury was caused by?" Master Hunyuan pointed at the wound on her shoulder, but when he finished speaking and his gaze landed on the wound, he suddenly fell silent. His eyes widened in disbelief, and his mouth was agape as he looked at the smooth, snowy shoulder in shock. Just now there were clearly a few scratches on her arm, but now the wound was gone. Chapter 23:57. As for the wound on her arm, it healed bit by bit as her hand moved, until it was as smooth as snow. This. He pointed at her healed arm incoherently, unable to say anything for a long time. Fengjiu glanced at her arm and revealed a faint smile. "I said it's only a small wound, but it still hurts." She could heal her wound, but the pain of being injured was something she had to bear. "Let's go. Let's see what's going on up ahead." She walked forward. Hunyuan returned to his senses and stared at her back for a long time before quickly following after her. When the two of them came to the front, they found that there were more than a dozen demonic beasts in front of them. These demonic beasts had no fur on their bodies, and their bodies were smooth. Unlike the ominous beasts, they walked on 2 feet like humans. The only difference was that these demonic beasts exuded demonic chi from head to toe. Their eyes were long and slender like a cat's eyes. Their noses were black, and their mouths were wide open like snakes swallowing animals. Those sharp fangs gave them a bloodthirsty and ferocious aura. And in the area surrounded by these demon heads, there was actually a small baby protected by a barrier. The baby was crying and waving its hands and feet. Outside the barrier, there were also 2 demon beasts trying to break open the barrier with their teeth. Seeing this scene, the two were slightly surprised. They didn't expect that there would be such a child in this place. Moreover, the child was protected by the barrier even though the adult was dead. Hunyuan's eyes glowed with wisdom as he stared at the demonic beasts and said, "This old man has traveled extensively for so many years, but this is the first time I've seen demonic beasts. TSK, so this is what demonic beasts look like." 17, I'll take 10, you take 7, Fengjiu said. With a wave of her hand, the azure-edged sword appeared in her hand. The azure-edged sword hasn't been stained with blood for a year. Although they're demonic beasts, we can make do with them. As soon as she finished speaking, her figure flashed and she instantly flew out. Ever since she was captured a year ago and her brother and Emo-chun brought the azure-edged sword back, it had never been with her. Only when she returned did Emo-chun return the azure-edged sword that he had kept for a year. It had to be said that the red armillary sash was a pretty good treasure, but it was much weaker than the azure-edged sword. Although the dagger was more flexible, it was still more suitable for close combat. In most battles, the azure-edged sword was the most suitable weapon. Sharp sword chi shot out from the tip of the sword. With a flash of cold light, one of the demonic beasts that was charging forward was cut in half. A sharp hissing sound was heard as blood splattered out, splattering all over the ground. Bye. Bye. Ah! Some of the demonic beasts let out hissing sounds, while others let out strange cries. Their speed was extremely fast, and in the blink of an eye they were in front of her. If she was an ordinary cultivator, she would have died under the fierce and fast attacks of these demonic beasts. Chapter 23:58. The two of them used less than 30 minutes to kill the 17 demon beasts one by one. Looking at the blood on the ground, the two of them walked over to the small barrier. When they got closer, the two of them saw that the child was not on the ground, but inside a small bowl-like magic artifact. What kind of magic tool is this? I can't tell what material it is made of. Fengjiu looked at the thing under the child in the barrier. Break the barrier first and take it out to see, the old man said and motioned for her to do it. Seeing this, Fengjiu didn't do it. Instead, she stared at the child and asked, "Old man, do you think there should be no problem with this child? He shouldn't be transformed from a demon beast, right?" Hearing this, Hun Yuanzi couldn't help but laugh. He glanced at Fengjiu and saw her conflicted face. He said with a smile, "What? Once bitten by a snake, 10 years shy of straw rope? That's not it. It's just that if you pick him up again and turn him into a demon beast, it won't feel good." Fengjiu said with a frown, but she still reached out and formed a seal. Spirit power surged and broke the barrier. Perhaps because he cried for too long, the baby's cries sounded a little hoarse. Fengjiu looked at the dancing child. He was only wearing a small doo-doo and the blanket wrapped outside had been kicked away. Looking at the pink and chubby child, she bent down and picked him up. It was soft and heavy. She held it with one hand and lifted a corner of the doo-doo. Glancing at it, she said with a smile, "It's a boy." Saying this, she looked at Hun Yuanzi who was looking at the magic tool and asked helplessly, "Why do I feel like I'm more fated with these little babies and demon beasts? I picked one up as soon as I went out." "Anyway, you haven't picked up a baby yet. It's fate that you met this one. Don't talk about raising those contracted beasts. Even if you raise a few more babies, you can still afford it. With this child's current state, I guess you'll have to raise him in the future," Hun Yuanzi said and looked at the baby who stopped crying in Fengjiu's arms. He joked, "Look, this child stopped crying in your arms. It's like he knows you're his mother." Hearing this, Fengjiu was speechless. "I'm not married yet." "So what if you're not married? Can't you adopt a child if you're not married? If you like him, you can keep him by your side. It's not a big problem," the old man said disapprovingly. He handed the blanket and the item to Fengjiu and said, "In my opinion, this child's origin is probably not ordinary. The corpses we saw earlier were probably not this child's parent." "What?" She raised her eyebrows and was a little surprised. "This is an immortal weapon, not an ordinary magic tool. There are patterns on it, but even I can't tell where it came from. However, this immortal weapon has no owner. It's just a small bed for this child to sleep on." It's obvious that this child's parents are not ordinary. Chapter 23:59. Upon hearing this, Fengjiu's mouth twitched. She glanced at Hun Yuanzi speechlessly. "Old man, it's a waste that you're not a storyteller. You don't believe me?" The old man glared at her. "I've lived for a long time and have encountered many more things than you. This old man can always guess correctly." Yes, you're amazing." Fengjiu was too lazy to say more. She only said, "Aren't you looking for something to eat? I'll take the child back to the tree. You can look around for game. Be careful and don't go too far." With that, she took the child's things from the old man and put them into the space. Then, she carried the child and walked back. This little heartless girl, leaving this old man here like this. Hun Yuanzi cursed in a low voice. He walked in the other direction of the forest, preparing to catch 2 rabbits or 2 snakes for a meal. As for Fengjiu, she carried the child back to the tree where the branches were piled. Seeing that there was no one around, she carried the child and flashed into the space. She placed the child to the side of the space and took off her clothes to wipe her body. Then, she changed into a green robe. When she saw the child she had placed to the side crying again, she walked forward and picked him up. Okay, don't cry. Good boy, don't cry. She gently coaxed him. However, the child kept crying. She thought for a moment and her gaze fell on the child's stomach. She was a little startled. Could it be that he's hungry? What should I do? She flashed out of the space and walked around the tree with the child in her arms. She was a little worried. The things that adults could eat were not things that this child, who was only a few months old, could eat. There was nothing that babies could eat in this place. I've got it. She took out a bottle of nutrient solution from the space and smiled. She gently tapped the mouth of the baby in her arms. You're lucky to have met me. You even have nutrient solution to drink. She found a place to sit down, holding the child in one hand and feeding him the nutrient solution with the other. Fengjiu couldn't help but chuckle when she saw the little guy opening his mouth like a starving chick and swallowing the nutrient solution. Little fellow, you're even more adorable than the little white tiger. After a while, the old man came back with 2 spirit chickens in his hands. He said to Fengjiu, I wanted to catch 2 rabbits or 2 snakes, but I didn't see any. Fortunately, I caught 2 spirit chickens. I thought that the meat would be very tender when roasted. Come, I'll leave them to you. He twisted the necks of the 2 chickens and threw them to the ground. Then, he walked towards the Fengjiu. He wanted to carry the baby in her arms so that she could roast the chickens. Wash your hands with water. Fengjiu stared at his hands. This child is only a few months old. His body is weak. You've just caught a chicken, so you have to wash it before you can hold him. Okay. You're so troublesome. The old man took out his water bag and poured water to wash his hands. After wiping them clean, he looked at Fengjiu. Is this okay? Seeing this, Fengjiu handed the baby in her arms to him. Then you can rest here with him. There's a stream not far ahead. I'll clean up these 2 chickens before I come back. Okay, go ahead. Chapter 2360. Fengjiu, who had just taken a few steps, heard the sound and paused. She turned around and looked in surprise at the old man, who had an ugly expression on his face. When she smelled the stench, the corner of her mouth twitched. Did he poop? She looked at the child blinking innocently in the old man's arms and smiled. She stepped back and said, This, you deal with it yourself. I'll go take care of the 2 chickens first. With that, she quickly walked away, leaving the old man standing there stiffly. The old man recovered after a long while. Looking at the child who was still kicking his feet, he glared and said, This old man has lived for so many years, and no one has ever dared to poop, humph. He could not say that word. When he thought of the child's filth on his body, he felt his scalp tingle. Immediately, he carried the child to the place where Fengjiu was. Fengjiu, who had deftly taken care of the 2 spirit chickens, saw the old man carrying the child over. She smiled and said jokingly, Old man, this child is so good to you. You just carried him and he's already made you like this. I guess this is the first time you've seen this, right? Hurry up and roast those 2 chickens. Later, you can take the child yourself. As the old man spoke, he carried the child with one hand and took off his clothes with the other. He placed the child on the clean clothes on the ground. Fengjiu smiled when she saw this. Okay, you wash first. I'll come over later. As she spoke, she smiled and walked back. She lit the fire and roasted the 2 chickens on the rack. She sprinkled some seasoning. Not long after, she saw the old man carrying the child in a doo-doo over. I'll give him back to you. The old man handed the child to Fengjiu and sat down by the fire. He took out a cup of wine and took a sip. What a little ancestor. This old man has lived for so long and has never served anyone. Feng Jiu took the child and smiled. When this child grows up, let him serve you. Hearing this, the old man looked at her with slight surprise. From what you're saying, do you really intend to keep this child? Didn't you want me to raise him as a son? Feng Jiu raised his eyebrows and looked at him mockingly. The old man glared at him. I told you to keep it, and you're really keeping it? You're an unmarried young lady, yet you're following the little guy around and calling him mother. This isn't too good, right? There's nothing bad about it. When we go back, I'll find a nanny for this little thing and ask Ling Shuang and the others to help take care of it. I'll just play with this little guy when I'm free. I don't think I'll have anything to do most of the time. She had already made plans. Since they didn't know the origins of this child, nor did they know where this child's relatives were, then they would raise him first. Once it grew up, she would let him look for it himself. Moreover, this little fellow was very cute and had been saved by her, so there was nothing wrong with keeping it by her side. Hun Yuanzi looked at her for a while and finally said, "Since you've said so, then let's keep it. However, isn't it a little inappropriate for us to have a child by our side right now?" "That can't be helped." She took out an old robe from her space and wrapped the child up. She said to Hun Yuanzi, "Quickly turn the roast chicken. Don't burn it." Chapter 2361. Since you're keeping him by your side, why don't you give him a name? The old man added some firewood as he spoke. Feng Jiu thought about it. That's true. We should give him a name. But what should we call him? She looked at the old man and asked, "Why are you looking at me? You can think of a name for yourself." "I don't know." He glared at her and ignored her. Feng Jiu thought for a moment when she heard this, and then she said, "Then I'll name it How. How about How or How?" The old man stroked his beard and said, "How has the same pronunciation as How. It means that the power of the water is boundless. Using it as a name shows that you have high hopes for him." The power of water and fire between heaven and earth was immeasurable. This baby's background aside, now that he was given the name How by the Phoenix Star, it was obvious that he would be extraordinary in the future. "Feng Hao?" The old man glanced at Feng Jiu and asked. "Feng Hao?" Feng Jiu was stunned and then chuckled. "How is that possible? Of course it's Xian Yuan Hao. He's my and Moses' child." She smiled and narrowed her eyes. The old man muttered with a strange expression, "You're really thick-skinned. You're not married yet. You said it was your and Moses' child, and even gave him the surname Xian Yuan Mose. Look at you. It's as if you're going to marry Xian Yuan Mose. Why? Do you have a problem with that?" Feng Jiu raised her brows and said, "Who else am I going to marry if not him? We're in love with each other. We're just short of a trip to pay our respects to heaven and earth. Didn't I hear that Xian Yuan Mose went overseas for a while? Counting the year you disappeared, it's been at least a year and a half, right? Are you so assured that he won't come back? If he brought back a woman yesterday, I'll see how you'll cry," the old man said sarcastically as if he was deliberately making things difficult for Feng Jiu. Feng Jiu chuckled. "He won't." "How do you know? Men are very fickle, especially when their women are not by their side. It is easier for them to be seduced by other women. I advise you to keep a close eye on them. I have lived for so long and have seen a lot of things like this." Feng Jiu chuckled, playing with the child's chubby little hand in his arms as he said, "Don't worry. If he really betrays me one day, I will sever all ties with him and find another man who is better than him." It's easier said than done, especially when it comes to love. So no matter what you say, this old man won't believe it. The old man waved his hand, his face full of disbelief. "What does it matter to me whether you believe me or not?" She chuckled and said, "Besides, this kind of thing is just chatting with me. It won't happen." Seeing the confidence in her expression and the trust in Xian Yuan Mose in her words, the old man laughed. Yes, that's your business. What does it have to do with us?" "Not to mention, it's just as you said, We're just chatting. Don't take it seriously, don't take it seriously. Feng Jiu didn't continue to talk about this issue with him. She just said, it's getting late. Let's rest here for the night first. We'll leave tomorrow morning. Okay. Chapter 2362. The two of them rested in the forest for a night and ate a roasted chicken. They wrapped up the remaining chicken and put it into their qiankuan bag. The next day, when the sky brightened, they continued their journey and flew into the sky on their magic tools. However, along with the two of them, there was an additional child blinking his pure eyes. With the addition of a child, their journey slowed down. The original 2-day journey took a full 3 days to reach their destination. That evening, because of the clouds and fog, they came down from the sky on their magic tools. Standing in the dense forest where they could barely see their own fingers, Feng Jiu asked, "Are there really people living here? There's too much fog here. We can't even see the road." As soon as she finished speaking, a gust of night wind blew, and she couldn't help but feel her hair stand on end. At this moment, the little bell at her waist gently rang. Even Hao who had never cried in her arms, began to cry. Wah 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 wah. The child's cries were loud and clear in the forest. Hun Yuanzi heard the child crying and came to Feng Jiu's side. "What's wrong? Why are you crying all of a sudden? Are you hungry again?" Feng Jiu held the child in one hand and looked around. She said, "I'm not hungry again, but there's something dirty around here." She looked at the sky. It was not dark yet, but the aura around her was a little colder. The branches swayed gently and the leaves rubbed against each other, making rustling sounds. At this moment, a mournful and sharp howl spread through the forest. "Give me your life." At the same time, she reached out and covered the child's ears. Her sharp gaze swept the surroundings. She saw that there were floating shadows in the fog. They blended in with the thick fog and were difficult to distinguish. "Looks like there are quite a lot of dirty things." As the old man spoke, he waved his hands, and a gust of air rushed out from his sleeves, blowing away a lot of the fog in the surroundings. As soon as the fog dispersed, the illusory figures that surrounded them appeared in front of them. Glancing at the figures, Feng Jiu hugged the child and said, "Old man, be careful." "What do you mean?" Hun Yuanzi was taken aback. He didn't quite understand why she suddenly told him to be careful. Both of them were surrounded. If they had to be careful, they had to be careful together. However, he soon understood what Feng Jiu meant. The phantoms screamed and pounced at the old man with their claws. Even the phantoms around Feng Jiu stared at Feng Jiu for a while before turning to Master Hun Yuan. All of a sudden, a dozen phantoms attacked him, leaving him shocked and confused. What was going on? He didn't pay attention and felt a ghost pass through his body. In an instant, he felt a pain in his head, as if the ghost that passed through his body wanted to take over his body. "Old man, what are you doing? Do you want to die? Quickly stabilize your mind." Feng Jiu was shocked when she saw this scene. What was this old man doing? He actually lost his mind and let the ghost enter his body. If it did, it would be troublesome. Chapter 2363. However, as soon as that spectre left, the other spectres surrounded Hun Yuanzi, causing him to cry out in shock. "What's going on? Why are these filthy things only bothering me and not you? I have something on me that they don't dare to approach." Feng Jiu looked at the spectres that were bothering Hun Yuanzi and said, "These things are afraid of yang and fire. Can you deal with them?" This old man was just careless. Do you think this old man can't even deal with these filthy things? Watch this. As Hun Yuanzi spoke, he turned his hands and the aura in his body surged. With a wave of his hands, an 8 trigrams diagram appeared around him, and even he was inside the diagram. As the 8 trigrams in his hands spun, the spectres screamed and were instantly sucked into the 8 trigrams diagram and disappeared. He withdrew his aura and exhaled lightly. He glanced at Fengjiu and raised his chin slightly, saying proudly, "How is it? This old man doesn't make a move, but once I do, I'll definitely scare off all ghosts." Fengjiu's mouth twitched. "Yes, you'll scare off all ghosts." With that, she stepped forward. "Hey, be careful. This place is very strange. This old man came here once and got lost. I was trapped for several months before I managed to get out." He shouted to Fengjiu as he followed her closely. "You're really something. You've been trapped here for several months and you still have the nerve to say that. This old man is reminding you to be careful." As the two of them talked and walked, the fog that had dispersed gradually gathered again, blocking their line of sight. Just as their figures disappeared into the fog, a pair of blood-red eyes suddenly appeared behind them, staring through the fog at the two people who were gradually disappearing into the distance. The two people who were walking forward seemed to have sensed something at the same time. They stopped and looked back at the same time, releasing their divine senses to investigate. However, they didn't find anything. "Do you feel like someone is watching us?" Hun Yuan asked Fengjiu as he stared at the vast expanse of whiteness. "I did have such a feeling, but I didn't sense the aura. Now it seems to have disappeared," she said softly. She hugged Hao, who had stopped crying, and patted his back gently with one hand. "Be careful, there's really something wrong with this place," the old man said again. "I know." Fengjiu agreed and continued to walk forward with him. After walking for a while, she felt that the fog was getting thicker and thicker, to the point where she couldn't even see her fingers in front of her. Suddenly, she heard a rustling sound like the rustling of leaves or the sound of something passing through the weeds. When she swept her divine sense in the direction of the sound, she didn't feel anything. The fog in front of her was too thick, and she couldn't see the path beneath her feet. Thus, she raised her hand and flicked her sleeve. A gust of qi gushed out from her sleeve and dispersed some of the fog in front of her. "Old man, is the fog in this place always like this?" she asked. However, there was no sound beside her, and Huan Yuan's aura was also gone. Sensing this, she frowned slightly and looked to her side and behind her. "Old man." Chapter 2364. Meanwhile, on the other side, Hun Yuanzi was staring at the green-robed figure in front of him and following her. After walking for some distance, he said, "Fengjiu, don't you think this place is a little strange? Where did this fog come from? Why is there such a big fog all over this place? I remember it wasn't this foggy when I came here before." The figure in front of him walked slowly as if she didn't hear Hun Yuanzi's words. She just quickened her pace. "Hey, this old man is talking to you. Why are you walking so fast?" He reached out to pull her, but who would have thought that when he pulled her, the person who was walking forward suddenly turned around and pounced at him with a grin like a demonic beast. "Ah!" The old man was startled and immediately cried out. Some distance away, Fengjiu faintly heard Hun Yuanzi's cry of surprise and immediately shouted, "Old man, where are you?" Her voice was imbued with spirit power, and it spread clearly throughout the area. It also fell into Huan Yuan's ears. "Over here." She couldn't see him, but she could hear his voice in the fog. Fengjiu walked towards the voice. After walking for some distance, she saw Hun Yuanzi running towards her with a frightened expression. "I'm here." Fengjiu, who was walking towards him, saw him and her eyes flashed. She looked at the old man running over and asked, "Are you okay?" "I'm fine. I just encountered a few ghosts and I caught them. I rushed back when I heard you call me." As he spoke, the old man's gaze was fixed on the white and soft sleeping Hao in Fengjiu's arms. He couldn't help but swallow and said, "You must be tired after carrying him for so long, right? Let me help you carry him?" As soon as he finished speaking, he reached out to carry the child in Fengjiu's arms. "Yes, you carry him. Be careful." As she spoke, the moment she handed the child over, the Qingfeng sword appeared in her hand and stabbed at the old man. It was so fast that he didn't even have a chance to dodge. He could only watch as the sword pierced through his heart, causing him to let out a shrill scream. At the same time, the old man's appearance also changed. When Feng Jiu pulled out his Qingfeng sword and struck out with his palm, the old man turned into a demonic beast. No, it should be said that he had returned to his original state. The demonic beast still tried to escape after having its heart pierced by the sword. Feng Jiu's Qingfeng sword flew out with a swoosh, chopping down from top to bottom. Only the sound of a sharp sword qi could be heard, followed by the sound of an explosion and a scream. The thick smell of blood filled her nose. She protected the baby in her arms with one hand and retracted her sword with the other. She believed that the old man was still in the area, and the voice from before must have been the old man's voice. However, why was there no movement after that voice? It seemed that there was not only a maze formation here, but also a spirit formation. The old man had probably fallen into a spirit formation or a spirit formation. She immediately calmed her heart and carefully scanned the surroundings with her divine sense. At this moment, Hun Yuanzi was trapped in the spirit formation again, just as Feng Jiu had expected. Seriously, I clearly told you to be careful and not to be trapped in the spirit formation again, but you're trapped again. If that girl knows, she'll definitely laugh at me, he muttered as he tried to walk out of the spirit formation. Chapter 2365. He widened his eyes. Could it be that he had been shouting for a long time and there was no sound? But that wasn't right. There wasn't a soundproof barrier here before. He reached out and waved his hand, breaking the soundproof barrier. Then, he shouted, Little phone, do you hear me? This old man is here. Little phone. As he shouted, he walked around the array and returned to his original spot. He couldn't help but tug at his beard in annoyance. Who set up this broken array? It's so hard to get out. Feng Jiu, who heard his voice, walked around the array and knocked down a tree outside the array. With a bang, the array's light disappeared and the surrounding fog dispersed. The old man's figure walked out happily. I told you I had to bring you along. Look, it's so much easier with you here. Hun Yuan said happily. He quickly walked to her and asked, Oh right, are you okay? This old man just met a demonic beast again. Feng Jiu was speechless when she heard his words. So her use was only to break the array? After hearing his words, she said, Didn't you say you were following me? How did you disappear all of a sudden? The fog was too thick. I kept following you, but who knew that demonic beast would transform into your appearance? If this old man didn't react fast enough, he would have fallen for it. He patted his chest and said with a frightened expression, You don't know, but when he saw your face transform into that bloodthirsty demonic beast's ferocious appearance, this old man was scared out of his wits. Hearing this, Feng Jiu glanced at him and said, After I realized you were gone, I looked everywhere for you and also met a demonic beast that had transformed into your appearance. As she said this, she looked at the place with a thoughtful expression. No one knew what she was thinking. What? You also met it? Then how did you see through it? You're not hurt, are you? He was shocked. Only then did he look at her and Hao in her arms. That demonic beast probably liked Hao white and tender skin, so it asked me to give Hao to it. I beat it at its own game and killed it when it was unprepared. Feng Jiu said lightly. She paused and glanced at the old man. There are not only spirits here, but also demonic beasts. This place is really not suitable for living in seclusion. So I'm very suspicious. Did you lead me into a ditch? Ah? How is that possible? I don't think so. After all, I came here more than 10 years ago. I remember it very clearly. This place. His voice became softer and softer. In the end, under Feng Jiu's gaze, he moved his lips, but no sound came out. Maybe. Hearing this, Feng Jiu sighed softly. I knew you were unreliable. If Zhuo Junyue was really in danger, he probably wouldn't have waited for us to find him. Hearing this, the old man coughed softly and said, "Well, why don't we look for him again? Maybe we can find the way." Chapter 2366. This time, the old man did not lead the way. Instead, Fengjiu walked along the front of the formation, avoiding the dense fog. After walking for half a day in the forest, the two sat down under a tree to rest. Flying on swords is restricted in this area. Otherwise, we could go up to the sky and take a look, the old man said softly. Fengjiu took out some water to drink and fed some to the child before saying, "You said that this is the territory of that clan. Flying is restricted here. Since that's the case, only their people can move freely in this area. We can only walk. If you hadn't led us astray, we probably wouldn't have wandered around here for so long," she said angrily. She said angrily as she put away the water skin. At this moment, she suddenly heard the sound of fighting coming from the forest. "Listen." She tugged at his sleeve, indicating for him to listen carefully. The old man saw her expression and listened carefully. When the sound of battle faintly came from the depths of the forest, his eyes lit up. "Someone's there? Let's go and take a look." The two of them followed the sound and came to the front. They saw a young man and woman being besieged by more than a dozen monstrous beasts. Fengjiu glanced at the two of them and motioned to the old man beside her. The old man understood and immediately helped. The young man and woman were in the Golden Core realm. It was difficult for them to deal with more than 10 monsters. Their bodies were covered in wounds and they gradually could not keep up with the monsters. They sent a signal, but the reinforcements did not come. They could not help but feel a trace of despair. However, at that moment, an old man suddenly appeared. He released a powerful chi in an instant. His astonishing battle prowess helped them turn the situation around. The demonic beasts were either dead or had fled. After the danger was over, the two of them couldn't help but express their gratitude. "Thank you for saving us, Senior." The two bowed to Hunyuan and looked at him with surprise. "Ha ha ha, you're welcome." The old man stroked his beard and smiled. He looked at the wounds on the two and said, "You're injured badly. Treat your wounds first." "Okay." The two of them agreed and helped each other to bandage their wounds. When they saw one of the men carrying a baby who was looking around with his eyes wide open, they couldn't help but feel strange. Demonic beasts often appear in this area. "Why are the two of you here? With a child?" the man asked. He felt that the combination of an old man, a young man, and a baby was a little strange. "We're here to look for someone. Do the two of you know of a hidden clan in this area?" Fengjiu asked the two of them. Hearing this, the two of them were slightly surprised and glanced at them. They didn't want to answer, but when they remembered that the old man had just saved them, they looked at each other and asked, "Since it's a hidden family clan, it naturally doesn't have any contact with the outside world. Why are the two of you looking for that family clan?" "To tell you the truth, we brought this child to find his father," Fengjiu said, ignoring the astonished look of the old man beside him. He said with a worried face, "The child came here to look for medicine, but who knew that after entering a family clan, he would not be allowed to leave? We were worried that something would happen to him, so we brought the child to look for him." Hearing this, the young man and woman looked at each other, somewhat stunned. Chapter 2367. "Do you know how to get to that family?" Fengjiu asked again. The two of them hesitated. After some hesitation, the woman asked, "Is the person you're looking for surnamed Zhua? Zhua Junyue?" Hearing this, Fengjiu was pleasantly surprised. Yes, that's him. He's the child's father. Have you seen him before?" Hearing this, the woman glanced at the man beside her. She paused and said, "We've only seen him once from afar. I know he's here to ask for medicine, but... Fengjiu looked worried. "But what?" "But our family head's youngest daughter has taken a liking to him. The family is now preparing for their wedding." the woman said and looked at the child in Fengjiu's arms sympathetically. Hearing this, the old man was stunned. Zhuo Junyue had made it sound so dangerous and urgent. So it was because someone had taken a liking to him and wanted him to be their son-in-law? To think that he had looked for Fengjiu so urgently to save him. If he had known that the kid was in such a good situation, he would not have bothered to make this trip. Fengjiu's eyes flashed when he heard the woman's words. He really did not expect this. She had been thinking along the way. When the old man had told her about Zhuo Junyue's request for help, she had used the child as an excuse. She had thought that since the other party had no grudges with Zhuo Junyue, she would not make things difficult for him on account of the fact that he had such a young child. She did not expect that the other party would not make things difficult for him. It was this young miss from a reclusive family who had taken a liking to Zhuo Junyue. This was interesting. Her eyes flickered and a dark light flashed across her eyes. It was so fast that no one noticed it. "Miss, can we trouble you to bring us over? Let the child meet his father?" Fengjiu asked and looked at the woman hopefully. "But it's useless even if you go. Fourth young miss will not let the person she has taken a liking to leave. Moreover, the family head has agreed to this marriage. You won't be able to change anything even if you go." Cough. The old man coughed lightly, glanced at Fengjiu, and then said to the other two, "Actually, we are his family. If he wants to get married, shouldn't we be present?" Hearing this, the woman and the man looked at each other and discussed in low voices. "I don't think it's appropriate to bring them along. If the fourth young miss finds out, she'll definitely vent her anger on us. Don't forget, we're only a branch family. If anything happens to her marriage halfway, I'm afraid the patriarch won't let us off. But they are Zhuo Junyue's relatives, and the child is still so young." The woman couldn't bear it, especially since the old man had saved them before. "That senior's strength is unfathomable. I'm worried that when he goes over, he will cause some trouble in this marriage. Moreover, although our clan rarely interacts with the outside world, we still invited many reclusive clans that we are on good terms with for fourth young lady's wedding. If something goes wrong, I'm afraid this." The woman hesitated. She wanted to help them, but she didn't know how. Chapter 2368. Seeing this, the two of them thought for a moment and finally agreed. "All right then. We'll take you there as a way to repay Senior for saving our lives, but you can't tell anyone about us." "Don't worry. We won't," the old man said with a smile, not forgetting to pat his chest as a guarantee. Fengjiu also revealed a smile. Just as he was about to follow them, he felt the hand holding the child's but become wet. He couldn't help but stop walking and take the child out of the red armillary sash. "Ah," he peed again. As she spoke, she called the old man over. Come, help me hold him. I'll change his diaper." She directly stuffed the child into the old man's arms and took out a piece of cloth that could be tied around the child's waist from her Qiankuan pouch. The young man and woman at the side stood and watched as Fengjiu helped the child change the cloth and tied it around the child's waist with two straps to secure the cloth's position. Then, he wrapped the child in an old garment and held him in his arms. Seeing a grown man move so skillfully, the two of them couldn't help but feel a little strange. Very few men would do such a thing. Moreover, why did they come to find the child's father? Why didn't the child's mother come? Although they were puzzled, the two of them didn't ask. After they helped the child change the cloth, they led them in the direction of the clan. After about half a day, they led them out of the forest and said to them, "Follow this road and you'll find it. We have to go first." "All right, thank you," Fengjiu said and watched the two of them leave first. Only then did he walk ahead with the old man. In the evening, the two of them finally saw the clan inside. They saw that it wasn't a forest, but a large piece of flat land. However, the manor's walls were so high that they could only vaguely see some roofs from outside. The two of them came to the front and knocked on the door. The two of them were guards who opened the door. After sizing up the old man, Fengjiu, and the child in Fengjiu's arms, they asked, "Who are you two? What brings you here?" Fengjiu restrained her aura and suppressed her strength. The other party could not see the depth of her strength, but the old man did not suppress his strength. Therefore, the two guards did not dare to be too presumptuous. "We are here to look for your patriarch," the old man said as he looked through the open door. It seemed to be quite lively inside. "Do the two of you have an invitation?" the guard asked. "Invitation? What was that?" "We didn't." The old man paused before he could finish his words. He stared at Fengjiu, who had suddenly sealed the two men's acupoints, and asked, "What are you doing? Aren't we going in?" "That's the most direct way," Fengjiu said as he walked past the two of them. Seeing this, the old man hurriedly followed and asked, "They're stuck there and can't move. I reckon they'll be discovered soon. Aren't you worried that they'll mobilize the entire manor to look for us? Since we're already here, why should we be afraid of trouble? Let's go. Let's find Zhua Junhua first." She walked slowly. She had already put away the red armillary sash, and carried Hao in her arms. When the old man saw this, he had no choice but to follow her inside. When they entered, some of the servants thought that they were guests of the residence, and all of them bowed slightly in greeting. Chapter 2369. The old man saw that she was so magnanimous, but he also walked with his head held high and his chest out. He put one hand behind his back and stroked his beard with the other hand. Just as the two were about to pass by the maid who was curtsying, the old man winked and wanted to say something to Fengjiu, but he heard her voice coming out. "Wait a moment." She stopped and called out to the servant girl who was about to leave. When the servant girl heard her voice, she stopped and turned around to bow. She asked in a warm voice, "What orders does this esteemed guest have? Where is your fourth young Miss Fiancée?" she asked. Hearing this, the servant girl was slightly surprised. She paused and glanced at Fengjiu from the corner of her eyes before saying, "The future son-in-law is in the south flower courtyard. Lead the way for us. We want to see him," Fengjiu said. "The fourth young miss has ordered that no one is allowed to see the future son-in-law before the wedding." Hearing this, Fengjiu's eyes flashed and asked in a different way, "Then how do we get to the south flower courtyard?" "Go straight and turn left when you reach a fork in the road. Walk around the fake mountain and you'll reach it," the servant girl replied. She was puzzled. Why did this guest want to see their future son-in-law? Hearing this, Fengjiu and the old man walked over according to the maid's instructions. At this time, the two people at the gate didn't react because the gate had been open all this time, which attracted the attention of the people in the mansion. After an old man unsealed their acupoints and inquired about them, he hurriedly walked into the mansion. In the front courtyard, in the hall, the family head was greeting a few old friends and listening to them talk about the recent events outside. In that case, this woman known as the ghost doctor can really be called a ghost genius. The Luo family head listened to his old friends and couldn't help but feel curious. There was actually such an outstanding woman and he really wanted to see her. Isn't that so? The ghost doctor Fengjiu's name is very well known outside. Everyone knows who she is. A middle-aged man sitting on the left said with a smile. However, I heard that she had been missing for almost a year. Some people say that she was killed outside. However, it seems that her contracted beast is still alive, so she shouldn't be dead. There's also another rumor. This woman is very likely to be the star of the Phoenix. That's right. The people of the four great immortal sects are very certain of this. It's a pity that we don't know where Fengjiu is. Just as they were talking about the most legendary events outside, the Luo family head saw the steward anxiously walk to his side and whisper a few words in his ear. After hearing those words, he stood up apologetically and said to the masters of the hidden families who had specially come, "I'm really sorry. Something came up at the last minute and I have to deal with it." Hearing this, they all smiled and said, "Brother Luo, you don't need to be polite. Let's take a stroll around the estate first. It's rare for us to come to the Luo estate, so this time, we have to properly admire the Luo estate's most famous 100-medicine forest. It's rare for you all to be so interested. Of course." The Luo family head smiled and said to the old man beside him, "First elder, why don't you accompany them to the 100-medicine forest?" Chapter 2370. They've snuck into the residence? Family head Luo frowned and said with a dark expression, "How dare they? Do they think just anyone can sneak into the Luo family? Get someone to find those two immediately." "Yes," the housekeeper replied. Just as he was about to leave, he was called back. "Wait." Family head Luo stopped him and said in a low voice, "Search in secret. Don't alert the guest." "Yes." The housekeeper left. On the other side, when Feng Jiu and Master Hun Yuan arrived at the South Flower Hall and saw the two guards outside the hall, their expressions changed slightly. After the old man glanced at Feng Jiu, he walked forward first, but before he could get close to the courtyard door, he was blocked. "Are you two guests in the wrong place? This is Nanhua Courtyard. We don't receive guests," one of the guards said. "That's right. We're here to look for Zhuojunyue." The old man smiled and said. He copied Fengjiu and suddenly sealed their acupoint. Then, he turned to Fengjiu and said, "Let's go. Let's go in and take a look." The two entered the courtyard and scanned with their divine senses. They locked onto one of the rooms. When they opened the door, they saw that there was no one outside. When they walked into the room, they found Zhuojunyue lying on the bed. "This kid is lucky. We came all the way here, but he's sleeping here." The old man muttered and patted him. "Why aren't you getting up? How long are you going to sleep for?" However, Zhuojunyue didn't react when the two entered or when the old man patted him. The old man couldn't help but be shocked. He hurriedly pulled Fengjiu forward. "Come and see what's going on. Why isn't this kid reacting?" Fengjiu handed the child to the old man. Then, he went forward to check Zhuojunyue's pulse. After a while, he withdrew his hand and said, "He's fine. It seems like he's just too tired and fell asleep." "That's not right. This kid's vigilance has always been good. No matter how tired he is, he wouldn't sleep like a pig." The old man shouted a few more times, but there was still no response. Seeing this, Fengjiu also felt that it was a little strange. However, when she checked his pulse, it was as usual. There was nothing out of the ordinary. Thus, she took out a bottle of medicine and placed it under his nose for him to smell. Not long after, he slowly woke up. Fengjiu saw that he opened his eyes and stared blankly at the top of the bed. She asked, "How do you feel?" Zhuojunyue looked at Zhuojunyue and quickly got up. Hearing this, Fengjiu and Hun Yuan were startled. "You're here for the wedding banquet?" Zhuojunyue asked. He sat on the bed and looked at the two. His gaze fell on the child in the old man's arms who was blinking at him. He was a little surprised. Where did this child come from? Hearing his words, the two of them were stunned. Now they could confirm that there was really something wrong with him, and it was a big problem. The two of them ignored him. Instead, they pulled him to a corner and whispered. Chapter 2371. That blockhead Zhuojunyue said he's getting married? It's really hard to believe, but from what he's saying now, he's still the same person, but his words sound a little strange. Why don't you ask him something else? She looked at the old man and gestured. Okay. The old man handed the child to Fengjiu and walked to the bedside. He looked at Zhuojunyue, who had already gotten up and put on his clothes, and asked, "I'm here to ask you, do you remember who I am?" Zhuojunyue glanced at him with a dark expression. "Hun Yuanzi. What about her?" The old man pointed at Fengjiu. Fengjiu. His expression turned even darker. What was this old man doing? Did he think he had lost his memory? There's nothing wrong with your brain. You still remember us? The old man stroked his beard in deep thought and stared at him. There's nothing wrong with your brain, but why did you say the wrong thing? What did they do to you? Zhuo Junyue was puzzled. He frowned and asked, What do you mean? Did I say something wrong? You said you're getting married? You want us to attend the wedding banquet? Feng Jiu raised her eyebrows and asked with a smile on her lips. That's right. I'm getting married. It's tomorrow. He nodded. Seeing the strange smile on her lips, he asked, Is it wrong? How did you meet the person you're getting married to? Feng Jiu asked with a smile. Well, he tried hard to recall, but his head hurt. It was as if there was a voice in his head repeating the words over and over again, causing him to cry out in pain. Ah! Feng Jiu took a step back with the child in her arms. The old man went forward and held him down. All right, don't shout. We snuck in. Zhuo Junwei gradually calmed down and stopped thinking about it. As smart as he was, he naturally realized that there was something wrong with him. Thus, he looked at Feng Jiu and asked, What's wrong with me? Why can't I remember what the person I'm getting married to looks like? I can't remember how I met her. Just thinking about it gives me a splitting headache. Yes. What's wrong with him? The old man looked at Feng Jiu and asked. My memories must have been tampered with. She patted the child in her arms and said slowly, The Luo family is a hidden family, so they naturally have some tricks up their sleeves. It's not surprising that they can tamper with your memories. She knew it. How could he suddenly become so strange? So this was where the problem lay. His memories weren't messed up, but some of them had probably been tampered with. Moreover, the tampering shouldn't have been too long. Otherwise, when they called out to him earlier, he wouldn't have said that he was so tired that he didn't even respond to their calls. She guessed that the memory tampering should have happened 2 days ago. Zhuo Junyue's face turned pale when he heard that. He wouldn't have believed it if someone else had told him that because of the vague memories in his mind. However, he believed what Feng Jiu and the old man said because they had no reason to lie to him. Chapter 2372. Blockhead. The old man was shocked and quickly went to support him. Feng Jiu narrowed his eyes and frowned. Take off his clothes. Take off his clothes? Oh, okay. The old man responded and began to take off Zhuo Junyue's clothes. When he reached out to take off his pants, Feng Jiu, who was watching from the side, pursed his lips and asked, Why are you taking off his pants? The old man was stunned and looked at her in astonishment. Didn't you say you were going to take off his clothes? She was speechless and glanced at the old man. There's no need to take off his pants. As she spoke, she walked forward and placed the child on the bed. Only then did she lift Zhuo Junyue's shirt to check. When she saw a faint red spot on his chest, she did not say anything. The old man beside her gasped in shock. This is the heart-binding curse. Damn it. They actually used such a despicable method. The old man's face was full of anger. His hands were tightly clenched into fists, making cracking sound. Other than the memory being tampered with, there's also the heart-binding curse. Feng Jiu frowned. The memory being tampered with is troublesome. As long as we use hypnotism, we can make him remember everything. But for the heart-binding curse, we either have to find the person who put the curse on him or find Miss Luo. Then help him find the memory that was tampered with first. We'll think of a way to solve the heart-binding curse. As the old man spoke, his face was as black as the bottom of a pot. A dignified, reclusive family actually used such a despicable method. How shameless! The hypnotism requires him to wake up. As Feng Jiu spoke, he took out a silver needle and inserted it into the acupuncture point on the top of his head. Not long after, he slowly woke up. What's wrong with me? He asked. Just now, he felt that his blood had hurt him, but he did not know why it had happened. What's wrong? Look at you, why are you so handsome for no reason? It's all because of your face. Great, now your memories have been tampered with and you've even been put under the heart-binding curse. I think you're definitely going to get married. The old man snorted softly and said in a bad mood. Zhuojunue was startled by his words. He looked down and saw a red spot on his chest. It was the spot where he had felt the tearing pain earlier. Can it be solved? He looked at Fengjiu and asked. Don't worry. It can be cured. As she spoke, she looked at him and said, First, I'll help you break the fake memories they set up for you. Relax for now and don't think about anything. As soon as she finished speaking, she looked at the old man beside her. Old man, guard outside. Before we go out, don't let anyone in to disturb us. Got it. Just as he was about to walk out, he saw that the child was still sleeping on the bed and asked, Do you want me to carry her out? Fengjiu took a look and saw that the child was already asleep on the bed. He said, No need. Seeing this, Hun Yuanzi went outside to guard. In the room, Fengjiu waved his hand and set up a soundproof barrier. He took out a pendant from his space and said to Zhuojunue, Look at this pendant of mine. Relax and don't think about anything. The hypnotism in the room was ongoing. Outside, the residence's guards were searching without alerting the guests in front. When they passed by Nanhua courtyard, they saw that the acupoints of the two people guarding the courtyard had been sealed. Only then did they shout, Quickly report to the family head and head to the courtyard. Chapter 2373. This old man has a belly full of anger and has nowhere to vent it. He stood up, rolled up his sleeves and said, This old man will teach you a lesson to vent my anger. Capture him. The guard shouted as he rushed towards primordial chaos. Hun Yuan did not have a weapon in his hand. He clenched his fists and punched the guards in the stomach. A visible ray of spiritual energy followed the punch. The hidden force was so strong that the guards could not help but bend over and groan with reddened faces. They could not catch their breath for a long time. Ah! Hiss! Grunts and cries of pain rang out one after another. How could those guards be a match for Hun Yuanzi? A few of them stepped forward, and soon they were all lying on the ground, howling in pain, unable to get up. How dare you? Where did you come from, madman? How dare you trespass into my Luo residence? A voice filled with pressure was heard. The pressure in the air directly pressed down on Hun Yuan, who was in the courtyard. However, with Hun Yuan's strength and cultivation, the pressure was useless. He put his hands behind his back and stared at the middle-aged man who came from behind with a large group of people. He asked with a dark face, Are you the head of the Luo family? Patriarch Luo sized up the old man in front of him and saw that there was nothing special about him. However, this old man was not afraid of his coercion. It was clear that his strength was not low. Hence, he took a deep breath and asked slowly, May I know who you are? Why have you come to my Luo residence to cause trouble? Who? The old man snorted, Don't you know who I am? Do you know who Zhuojunue is? Family head Luo's eyelids twitched. Zhuojunue? He naturally knew who he was. Zhuojunue was the husband that his youngest daughter had her eyes on. He planned to marry them tomorrow. Thinking that there were guests in the residence, and that the old man's strength was unfathomable, he thought for a moment and said, Why don't we sit down and talk? Talk? What's there to talk about? I just want to ask you one thing. How are you going to settle the matter of you using the heart-binding curse on Zhuojunue? Hun Yuan snorted and asked directly. Family head Luo's heart sank, but he smiled and said, What heart-binding curse? I don't know what you're talking about. Is there a misunderstanding? Junue and my youngest daughter are in love. He begged me again and again before I agreed to the marriage. Ha 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 ha. This old man was wondering what kind of people this reclusive Luo family was. I didn't expect them to be cowards who don't dare to admit what they did. Family head Luo Junue's face. Family head Luo's face a lesson. Luo of the Luo residence. Patriarch Luo's expression changed slightly, and the anger in his heart surged. He secretly clenched his fists and said in a deep voice, "Don't go too far. Could it be that you think that just because my Luo clan has withdrawn from the world, we can't afford to offend you?" Chapter 2374. However, just as Patriarch Luo gave the order and the people behind him were about to attack, the door behind Hun Yuanzi opened with a creak. Zhuo Junyue stood by the door and looked outside with a cold expression before walking out. Patriarch Luo. Zhuo Junyue's gaze landed on the middle-aged man who was standing with his hands behind his back. "I also want to ask, what's with the binding curse on me?" Patriarch Luo frowned and stared at Zhuo Junyue. On the other side, the fourth young miss of the Luo estate had been discussing the wedding with her two brothers the next day. When she heard what had happened, she cried out in alarm. "What?" As soon as her voice fell, she abandoned her two brothers and rushed to the South Flower courtyard. When she arrived outside the courtyard and saw the tense atmosphere, her heart tightened. She walked past the crowd and came to Zhuo Junyue's side. "Junyue, what's wrong?" However, before she could touch Zhuo Junyue, he pushed her away and she stumbled a few steps back. She looked at Zhuo Junyue in a daze and muttered, "Junyue? What's wrong?" Zhuo Junyue looked at her coldly and said without a trace of emotion in his voice, "Fourth young mistress, please respect yourself." When fourth young mistress Luo heard this and saw his distant and cold expression, she ran back to her father. "Father, what's wrong with Junyue? Didn't you say that he would remember me as his fiancé when he wakes up? Didn't you say that I'm the only one in his heart? Why is he now?" Patriarch Luo's face darkened when he heard her say this in front of everyone with red eyes. When the two young masters of the Luo family heard this, they were also stunned. They looked at each other with shock in their eyes. What was going on? They had just returned from training outside and were quite happy when they heard about their sister's marriage. However, they did not expect this marriage to be different from what they had imagined. "Forget it. You kept denying it just now, saying that you don't know about the binding curse and that I'm a crazy old man. Great, now your daughter has admitted it, right?" The old man stroked his beard and sneered at the side. She had raised a stupid one. How could such a woman be betrothed to Zhuo Junyue? Even if he didn't find it embarrassing, he felt embarrassed for him. "Father, what's going on?" The two young masters who came from behind asked, their gazes landing on their father. "I'll tell you more about it later," Patriarch Luo said in a low voice. He stared at Zhuo Junyue and asked in a low voice, "Zhuo Junyue, what do you mean? Are you going back on your word now? Don't forget, you were the one who begged me to marry my daughter to you." "Ha ha ha ha." Before Zhuo Junyue could say anything, Hun Yuanzi laughed out loud. "How embarrassing. Even if you don't feel embarrassed, I feel embarrassed for you." Hun Yuanzi paused and glanced at the ashen-faced Patriarch Luo. "Why don't you take a good look at what kind of person my son is? Begging your daughter to marry him? Aren't you afraid of biting your tongue when you talk big?" When the Luo family's fourth young mistress heard this, she couldn't help but get angry. "Who are you? How dare you be so presumptuous in my Luo clan?" The old man snorted. Just as he was about to speak, he heard Fengjiu's voice from behind. "Fourth young mistress Luo." Chapter 2375. She was not bad-looking, but the arrogance in her eyes made her less pleasing to the eye. Although she was beautiful, she was not good enough for Zhuo Junyue. Fourth young mistress Luo looked at Fengjiu and saw a young man with a child in his arms. She lifted her chin and asked, "Who are you?" Fengjiu smiled and walked over to Zhuo Junyue. She held the child in one hand and little Hao Er's chubby hand in the other. "Junyue, tell fourth young mistress Luo who I am." When Zhuo Junyue heard this, he couldn't help but turn his head to look at her. He thought to himself, what is she trying to do? When fourth young mistress Luo heard Fengjiu's words, she stared at Fengjiu's face, which was even more beautiful than a woman's, and the child in her arms. Her expression changed and she pointed at her. You're a woman. Fengjiu smiled and looked at the Luo family members who were looking at her in shock. She said slowly, I just think that if you want to use the conjoined hearts curse, you should at least find out about this person's background and see if he is married and has children. Otherwise, if you use the conjoined hearts curse on your own accord, you might end up in a position worse than a concubine. Isn't that a joke? Patriarch Luo's expression was extremely ugly. He stared at Fengjiu, then at the child, and then at Zhuo Junyue's cold face. He felt a mouthful of blood rising to his throat. After all this time, Zhuo Junyue was already married and had children? Was this ridiculously handsome man a woman in disguise? Was the child in her arms their child? His face turned ashen and his body trembled with anger. If this marriage really happened, then wouldn't he, the daughter of the Luo family, only be a concubine? No. This woman could not even be considered a concubine. Did that mean Zhuo Junyue had a concubine in his family? Thinking of this, he only felt his old face burning. His beloved daughter had to be someone else's concubine? She was not even a concubine? Without another word, he turned around and shouted in a deep voice, First Elder. Father, the First Elder is not here. Eldest young Master Luo, who was standing behind him, looked at his furious father and did not ask any more questions. The situation was clear, but he did not expect his father and sister to do this. Get him to remove the conjoined hearts curse. Chase all of them out. Patriarch Luo left after he said that. He flung his sleeves. Hey, you're leaving just like that? The old man shouted. He was about to chase after Fengjiu when Fengjiu pulled him back and shook his head. Seeing this, he didn't say anything else. Master SS eldest young master Luo young master Luo as eldest young master. SSSS. The old man stroked his beard and nodded. He narrowed his eyes and said, however, you don't think that this matter can be settled with just an apology, do you? Hearing this, the eldest son of the Luo family was stunned. He looked at them and said, My father and little sister were just confused for a moment. As long as you don't take it to heart, I am willing to prepare a small gift to apologize to you. Remove the conjoined hearts curse first. Eldest young Master Luo scoffed and did not say anything else. Seeing this, the Luo clan's eldest young master instructed the people around him to invite the Grand Elder over. Chapter 2376. The old man glanced at Fengjiu and then looked at Hun Yuanzi. He then looked at Zhuo Junyue and said, Come with me. As he spoke, he looked at fourth young mistress Luo, who was standing at the side, and said, Fourth young mistress, come with us. Fengjiu sat down at the stone table in the courtyard with the child in her arms. The old man walked a few steps in the courtyard. Soon, he walked to the room they had entered and looked in through the window. The two young masters of the Luo family, who were still standing in the courtyard, looked at Fengjiu and the child in her arms. They could not help but ask, How should I address you, young mistress? If it wasn't for her words earlier, they wouldn't have been able to tell that the handsome man in front of them was a woman. Although she didn't say it explicitly, she should be talking about her, right? Fengjiu held the child in one hand and rested her chin on the table with the other hand. She smiled and looked at the man in front of her. She said, Who told you that I'm a woman? Everyone was stunned by her words, especially the two young masters of the Luo family. They looked at her in astonishment and said, Didn't you just say, just now? Did I say that I'm a woman? Fengjiu raised her eyebrows. There was a hint of wickedness in her handsome face. It was hard to tell if she was a man or a woman. Eldest young Master Luo looked at Fengjiu and said, You're not his woman? Then this child? Feng Jiu smiled but didn't say anything else. She saw the door open from the corner of her eye and Zhuo Junyue walked out first. However, his face was paler than when he went in earlier. You removed it? Feng Jiu looked at him and asked. Zhuo Junyue nodded and pulled open his shirt to reveal his chest. Yes. Very good. Now it's time to collect interest. She stood up with the child in her arms and sighed. It's not easy for us to come all the way here. It's not our style to return empty-handed. Hearing this, Hun Yuanzi stroked his beard and nodded. Not bad, not bad. We can't return empty-handed. But what good things are inside? The Luo family is good at growing spiritual herbs. There's a huge herbal field at the back of the mountain. Zhuo Junyue suddenly interjected. When the three siblings of the Luo family heard the three of them discussing in front of them, they couldn't help but be dumbfounded. Even if they were bandits, they wouldn't dare to discuss things so openly. Were they looking down on them? Eldest young Master Luo gestured to the guards outside to stop the three of them as they walked past them. He walked forward and said to the three of them, "Why don't the three of you leave now?" Feng Jiu looked at Zhuo Junyue. "You haven't gotten the herbs yet, right? Why don't we let young Master Luo use those few flavors as an apology?" "Impossible!" Behind them, fourth Miss Luo sternly shouted, "That's impossible! Don't even think about taking a single spiritual herb from us." She glared at Feng Jiu, her eyes full of resentment. She should have thought about it. How could an outstanding person like Zhuo Junyue be unmarried? However, not only was he married, but he even had a child. How hateful! Fourth Miss Luo, shouldn't you be thinking about how to explain to the guests in front of you why your marriage was cancelled? Why are you still standing here? Chapter 2377. You! Fourth young Mistress Luo was furious. She pulled out a whip from her waist and lashed it at Feng Jiu. "Do you think I won't beat you to death right now?" The whip's sharp sound cut through the air, bringing with it the sound of the wind. This sudden scene was unexpected to everyone. Just as the Luo clan's people cried out in alarm and wanted to stop it, they saw that the cyan figure had already dodged with the child in her arms. Ah! A cry of pain was heard. Fourth young Mistress Luo, who was lashing out with the whip, bent her knees and fell down. She tried to stand up, but her legs gave way and she fell down again. Feng Jiu stood aside and looked at Zhuo Junyue and the old man. "Didn't you want to settle the score with Master Luo? Let's go. Let's go." The old man strode out as he spoke. Zhuo Junyue and Feng Jiu followed behind him. Eldest young Master Luo had a bad premonition as he watched them leave. He could not see the three of them clearly, but he could sense that they were dangerous. They were in the Luo family's territory, and there were only three of them with a baby. However, they were not afraid at all. If they were not confident, they would not have dared to do so. "You two, help the young mistress back to the courtyard," he instructed the maidservant beside him. Then, he said to his second brother, "You follow them. I'll discuss this with my father." Thus, one of the brothers went to the main courtyard, while the other followed behind Feng Jiu and the other two. In front of them, Master Luo was apologizing to the people from the reclusive families. "I didn't expect things to turn out this way. I'm sorry for making you come here in vain." "Ha ha ha, Brother Luo, don't say that. Since we're here, we don't plan to leave just like that. We'll stay here for 2 days and drink some wine. We'll let the young people learn from each other." "That's a good idea. I agree." Another patriarch smiled and said, "We are all secluded clans and rarely contact the outside world. Apart from going out to gain experience, our clan's disciples rarely compete with others. Taking advantage of the fact that the younger generation of our clans are all here, we can learn from each other and give each other pointers." The patriarchs all felt that this suggestion was not bad. Therefore, no one brought up the matter of Patriarch Luo's daughter's marriage being abruptly annulled. After all, he did not explain in detail, so it was not good for them to ask too much. Then let's go back and tell the juniors to get ready. After saying that, they left first. After sending them out of the main hall, he saw his eldest son rushing over with big strides. Seeing this, he asked, "Have those people been chased out?" He turned around and walked towards the main seat, where he sat down and took a sip of tea. "Father, they are still in the manor," eldest young Master Luo said as he saw his father's face darken. When his father looked at him, he said, "The United Heart curse has been lifted by the first elder. Father, I don't think the three of them are ordinary people. How can you chase them away so easily? I'm worried that this matter won't be handled well. I'm afraid." "Humph!" He snorted coldly and slammed the teacup on the table. With a bang, he stood up and said, "What are you worried about? They sneaked into the Luo residence. How dare they cause trouble here? Now that the United Heart curse has been lifted, what else do they want?" Chapter 2378. Seeing that his father did not speak, he hesitated for a moment, then said, "I heard them say that we have a few herbs here that they need. Since that's the case, why don't we give them those herbs as an apology and let them leave?" "Impossible." Hearing his eldest son's words, the Luo family head shouted in a deep voice, his eyes full of fierceness, "It's impossible for them to take our Luo family's herbs. Since they don't want to leave now, then we'll get someone to chase them away. I don't believe that we'll be afraid of just 3 people here. Father, it's better to avoid trouble. Those 3 people really can't be enemies with them. I'm really afraid that our Luo family will suffer because of this," he said helplessly. "You don't have to worry about this. I'll get someone to chase them away." He paused and called outside. A few guards flashed in from outside and bowed respectfully. "Family head." The Luo family head stood with his hands behind his back. He glanced at the guards and ordered in a deep voice, "Chase those 3 people out of the Luo family's territory. If they dare to resist, teach them a good lesson and let them know the power of our Luo family." "Yes." The guards responded and turned to leave. Feng Jiu and the others were heading this way. However, before they could get close to the main courtyard, they were surrounded by a dozen guards. "The family has ordered you to leave immediately." "Leave?" Feng Jiu raised his eyebrows slightly and glanced at the guards with a faint smile. "You're letting us leave just like that? Sure, call your family head out and let him talk to us in person." Seeing this, the guards made a hand signal, and another 10 or so shadow guards surged out from the surroundings. When those people appeared, they attacked them without saying a word. "You refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Then I'll show you the power of our Luo family." As soon as the voice fell, a sharp sword with a cold glint was drawn. Just as it was about to stab them with a sharp and intimidating aura, it was suppressed by the pressure released by Hun Yuan, who was standing at the side. Their bodies stiffened and they stood rooted to the ground, unable to move. They were horrified and looked at primordial chaos in shock. Such a powerful pressure. Who exactly was this old man? "How dare you attack us? You're overestimating yourselves." The old man coldly snorted, and his pressure enveloped them, causing them to involuntarily kneel down with their legs trembling. "Scram! Go and call your Luo family's patriarch out. This old man wants to know what kind of color he is going to give us." Before the dozen or so guards could make a move, they all knelt down with a plop under the pressure. In the surrounding area, the few disciples of the reclusive families saw this, and all of them looked at the old man with inquisitive and astonished gazes. Feng Jiu stood quietly at the side with the child in her arms. She didn't need to do anything. She only needed to watch quietly. Initially, she did not plan to do anything to the Luo family. She only wanted him to hand over the herbs as compensation to Zhuo Junyue. However, looking at the situation now, she had to teach him a lesson. There are some people that you can't always tolerate. When it was time to make a move, one had to make a move, especially when the other party already had the intention to teach you a lesson. Chapter 2379. The head of the Luo family was shocked when he heard this. He exclaimed, "How is that possible? The strength of the people I sent is one of the best in Luohu. Father, why don't we talk about Zhuojunue? That old man's strength is not something we can deal with. Since the two of them dared to come to our Luo family like this, it can be seen that they are not ordinary people. Moreover, their words and actions have already told us that they are not ordinary people. Let's take advantage of the fact that things have not gotten out of hand and quickly retreat. Otherwise, it will be too late for regret." Ridiculous. He is just an old man. Do you think that there is no one in the Luo family? Since that is the case, I will meet him personally. He snorted coldly, flung his sleeves, and strode out. Even the eldest young master could not stop him in time. He could only sigh helplessly and catch up with him. Perhaps it was because the head of the Luo family was really angry. The moment he went out, he called out the older generation of the Luo family, as well as a few elders. 20 people walked to the front yard one after another. The guests of the Luo clan, the patriarchs of the few hidden clans, and their disciples also walked over. "Brother Luo, what is going on?" a head of the reclusive family asked. He looked at the scene in front of him with some confusion. These people dare to cause trouble in the Luo family. If we don't teach them a lesson, won't they think that the Luo family is a pushover? That anyone can do whatever they want to us? Hearing this, the heads of the reclusive families looked at each other and did not say anything. Instead, they retreated to the side and watched quietly. As for the disciples of their clans, they were watching from a distance and discussing in low voices. "Oh, it's quite lively here. What is this? Are you trying to bully us with numbers?" the old man said in a mocking tone. He looked at the crowd and finally, his gaze fell on the head of the Luo family. Hearing the old man's words, the people from the Luo family felt a little embarrassed. They were the older generation of the hidden family, and now there were so many people surrounding these three people. Among the three of them, only the old man's strength was unfathomable. The other person had almost become the son-in-law of the Luo clan, but now he wanted to attack them. No matter how one looked at it, it was somewhat unreasonable. Thus, their gazes all turned to the Luo family's family head as they silently questioned him. Patriarch Luo didn't expect that the younger generation of the hidden families would also come, and they were all watching from a distance. Seeing this, he thought about it and hissed at the elder, "Don't say that the Luo clan is bullying you with numbers. You just want those spiritual medicines, don't you? We'll give you a chance. Let's fight one-on-one. Best of 3. As long as you can beat our Luo clan, not to mention those few spirit herbs, you can pick any 10 spirit herbs from our herb garden. Moreover, we'll apologize to you in public." Hearing this, the people of the Luo clan looked at Fengjiu's group of 3 and felt that the patriarch's method of winning 2 out of 3 matches was very good. Even if the old man won, the other 2 would definitely not be as strong as the people of the Luo clan. If the Luo clan won 2 out of the 3 matches, they would naturally win. Chapter 2380. A strange look flashed across Zhuojunyue's eyes when he heard that. He glanced at the people from the Luo family, then glanced at the old man, who was stroking his beard, and Fengjiu, who had a playful look on his face. He suddenly felt that he had been here for so long, had been detained, and had almost become the Luo family's son-in-law. Yet, it was not as convenient as the 2 of them. The people from the Luo family knew his level of strength. Indeed, if someone from the Luo family was more powerful than him, he would not have a chance of winning. Therefore, he would definitely be the loser in this best of 3 match. As for the old man and Fengjiu, the former was unfathomable in their eyes, while the latter was probably not regarded as a threat at all. After all, she had never revealed the depth of her strength. In addition, her age was there for all to see. Naturally, no one knew that she was the strongest one. "You said that you want to win a best-of-3 match with us?" The old man stroked his beard, thinking that he had heard wrongly. "So? You don't dare?" Patriarch Luo scoffed and glanced at the three of them disdainfully. When the old man heard that, he glanced at him with a strange look, then moved closer to Fengjiu and whispered, "He said that he wants to win a best-of-3 match with us. Why do I think that's a good idea?" Especially when he felt like he was pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger. At this moment, he really understood how Fengjiu often felt when he tricked people. At this moment, he could not help but feel eager to try. He could not wait to see the disbelief and shock on their faces after they lost. Fengjiu patted the child in her arms with a smile on the corners of her mouth. She looked at the patriarch of the Luo clan with a dim light in her eyes and said, "I also think this is a good idea. I can accept it." Patriarch Luo's eyes lit up when he heard that. He stared at the three of them, then waved his hand and said in a deep voice, "All right. This is something that all of you have heard, so please be my witness." The masters of the reclusive families looked at each other and said, "All right, let's be our witnesses." The surrounding disciples of the reclusive family clans looked at Fengjiu and the other two like they were watching a good show. In their opinion, this was a competition that they were bound to lose. They really didn't know why the three of them would agree to such an unfair competition. "Then, please come to the training field at the back," the people from the Luo family said as they led the way to the training field. Patriarch Luo, the elders, and the manager discussed at the side while looking at Fengjiu and the other two. "Zhuojunye isn't a match for the first elder, so we'll leave him to the first elder. Since that old man is stronger than all of us, we'll let one of the managers fight him. There's no need to fight too much. We just have to make sure that he doesn't get injured and can retreat safely." Patriarch Luo said in a low voice, "We won Zhuojunye's match and lost the old man's match. So, we just have to win the last match with the lady." Upon hearing this, the eldest son of the Luo family asked hesitantly, "Father, is that green-clothed man really a woman?" You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.